Health is International, International Health, Travel, and Evacuation Insurance. Arno, if you would please
Thank
unmute
you.
and I will step back and mute.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi everybody and welcome this evening. Super excited to be here. Thank you for that nice introduction. I'm here to talk to you about international health, travel, and evacuation insurance. I have been working in this area for about 20 years. I will give you my contact information at the end. My website is healthisinternational.com. My name is Arno, and the email is arno@healthisinternational.com. I have been working with cruisers for a very long time. I am an aspiring cruiser, and in fact, we will be boat shopping starting this year in Annapolis, just kind of tentatively, and then with the plan on purchasing something in the spring. I've been sailing since I was a kid, and it has always been my dream to get out there, and so now is the time. And so somewhere along that path, I started doing international health insurance, and I just kind of fell into the niche of, well, what do people do when they're sailing? And at the time, it was going to be for our family, and then that kind of didn't happen. Dream got deferred a bit, but I still have been sort of in this space for quite a while, and so I feel like I know cruisers and understand them, and I'm known for my customer service. When you call, you get me. You don't get a bot. You don't get someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. When you call, you actually get me on the end of the line. So this begins sort of our first part of Health Insurance 101, sort of your education in the different types of health insurance that are out there. And I'll try and explain them the best I can. And then after that, I have some examples of some different actual cruisers and what plans worked for them and why, and sort of how I match the plan to the cruiser. So there's three general categories. The first category is travel medical insurance or short term. The second category is annually renewable or long term. And then the last category is evacuation and extraction. Many of you have probably purchased things online, and at the end it said, did you want to add insurance to that? That might have been travel medical insurance, or that might have been something called trip insurance, slight difference. Annually renewable insurance is probably like the plan that you have right now or have had in the past with your employer. And then evacuation and extraction sort of speaks for itself, and we'll talk about why that could be a good idea for you. The short term or travel medical insurance, short term can be up to a year. It could even be up to multiple years. You can buy it and then you can renew it again, or not renew it. You can repurchase it the next year. You could repurchase it the next year. And some people choose to do that. It gives you no coverage in your home country. So it doesn't, if you are a US citizen, it's not going to cover you at home. Typically, it's used in combination with insurance you have at home. So ideally, you would have a plan that you have at home. That could be Medicare. That could be a legacy plan that you had from an employer and you still have. Could be an ACA plan. And because those plans generally don't cover you outside of the US, Medicare certainly covers you nowhere outside the US. People use these types of plans to cover them abroad, and they pay the medical bills in a foreign country, and they often include evacuation to the nearest best facility. And they're perfect coverage for accidents, falls, new illnesses. they fall short for things like heart attacks or strokes, or what I call sort of diseases of aging, because these are often caused by an underlying condition, which would then, the slides are in presentation mode. Is there not good viewing of the slides?
No, we can see the slides, they just aren't, you aren't rotating through the slides yet.
Oh, I am in rotating. I'm rotating on my end.
Um, I see that just the first slide, Arno.
Uh-oh. Still?
Yes.
Okay, this isn't good. Let me try something here. This is going to take a minute.
Yeah, go up. It said slideshow and you weren't on slideshow.
Yeah, I was though. I'll try again here.
Okay.
Now you see something blurry or nothing at all. I'm very sorry, you guys. Let me stop the share for just a minute.
Arno, why don't you,
Yeah,
just in a pinch, go ahead and email me your slides and I
I,
can bring them up
I,
too.
I got it solved right here.
Oh, okay.
Are we good now?
Yes.
Second slide, third slide.
Yes, you're on the third slide.
Okay. I won't repeat myself. I'll start right here. Is that good? So short-term, long-term evacuation and extraction. Short-term is good for short trips up to a year, but you can purchase it repeatedly. Does not give you coverage at home. You can use it in conjunction with your insurance at home to cover you internationally. It falls short for things like heart attacks and strokes, which are considered diseases of aging. Because, if you have a heart attack, they're going to say, well, you have heart disease, and then therefore you had a heart attack, and that's a pre-existing condition. So where they're very bad is pre-existing conditions, with one exception, and we'll get to that. Annually renewable insurance is the insurance that you probably have right now. It covers you annually. It renews every year, regardless of any changes in health status. And my long-term plans can cover you anywhere in the world. They're good for accidents. They're good for illnesses. They're good if you get cancer. They'll cover your mental health. They will cover all of you. And all of them have the option of adding up to 180 days of coverage in the US. And there's even a plan that allows up to 270 days in the US. So these are excellent if you are a seasonal cruiser, pre-Medicare age. So before 65, you're a seasonal cruiser. You're spending time in the US, you're spending time abroad, you're going to Europe, you're going to the Caribbean, and you still want coverage in the US, or if you're a full-time cruiser and you don't care about coverage in the US anymore. Most long-term plans do include some basic emergency coverage for trips home. That basic coverage is for if you choose a plan like that, one of the pitfalls is that people often come home and they say, oh, I'm going to go book a checkup with my doctor and things like that. No, those are just for emergencies. So if you get a plan that includes some emergency care at home, just remember it's for your car accident or your skiing accident. All annually renewable plans generally exclude pre-existing conditions, with one exception. And but they're sort of they're a lot more flexible and a lot more accepting. So just because you're on a statin, they're not going to say that you have a pre-existing condition. Just because you take a high blood pressure medicine, that might be fine with them. They won't necessarily cover the medication, but they will accept you. Also, there are plans that people always say, I only want a catastrophic plan. That's fine. I completely support that. I understand it. I'll show you the catastrophic plans that I have, but then don't get mad at me when it doesn't cover absolutely everything, because you told me that medical care was cheap everywhere you were going. So that's just something that I've seen, in 20 years. Is a lot of people want the bare bones plan, but then they want all the frills when it comes to actually needing medical care, because that's what we're used to. GeoBlue is one company I work with that I really like. They do not always exclude pre-existing conditions. If you have insurance now, you can get a letter that will allow you for them to cover the pre-existing conditions. And chances are they include your favorite doctor. They use the Blue Card PPO, which is the Blue Cross Blue Shield, sort of the fanciest plan for their PPO. So I thought we could take a look at a few different scenarios that travelers might have, and sort of see what I'd recommend for those different people. Bonus points if you know where that picture was taken. So our first, and these are all real people. I have their permission to use their names and their families, and this is actually their boat, and this is pictures of them. They were cruising, or they are cruising. In the case of Tess and Alex and the 3 kids, they were cruising last year, and they ended up in Scotland, and they've moved there. So in their case, they wanted a robust plan. They wanted, they felt that was important with their kids and with their lifestyle. They also wanted US coverage because the kids came back to summer camp and to see the grandparents and to get away from hurricane season. So they were spending quite a few months in the US, and then cruising in between. And so I recommended a full service long-term plan. They could save money if they wanted a higher deductible and maybe only inpatient coverage, but they would still be covered in case someone got injured while in the US. They ended up going, I believe they ended up going with GeoBlue. It's comprehensive. It's US and international always. The only qualification for that particular plan is that you live on your boat, at least most of the year. They're excellent with claims, and all their plans are inpatient, outpatient, and extensive wellness, travel, vaccines, all the bells and whistles, including doctor visits with just a copay, without having to pay your deductible. My most popular plan is Cigna. Cigna is very modular, so they have a whole bunch of different modules, and you can sort of pick and choose. And so the full plan would be inpatient, outpatient, evac, cancer, wellness, US coverage, everything together. I left off vision and dental. I never recommend vision and dental. I don't think that any of the companies really offer good vision and dental plans. So I usually say, hey, just pay that out of pocket. But Cigna allows you to have that catastrophic plan that everybody says they want, which would be inpatient, ER, and cancer. The reason cancer is always listed separately is because most cancer treatments are actually outpatient. And so they want to make sure you understand that even if it's an outpatient cancer treatment, it's still covered in that core plan. A person could get that core plan and then they could say, oh, I want wellness. So I'm going to add wellness into that core plan. Or I'm going to use a standalone evacuation plan. I'm going to remove the evacuation. And so their modular plans and their flexibility make them really popular with cruisers. And then sort of my budget plan is IMG. I'll be honest, it's not my favorite company. They're bad for pre-existing conditions, and both their approval and their claims process can be very finicky, and they have some policy wording that can be a bit confusing. So they are the budget plan. I have lots of clients with IMG that are happy, and I do have some clients on IMG who are looking for something else now because they're unhappy with it.
Arno, is this family premiums or these individual premiums?
Excellent question. Thank you. All the quotes that I provide you, if you ask me for quotes or that I have here in the program, are for everybody together. So this would be a family premium. This would be a premium for all 5 of them. Kids in general are very cheap. People over 65 get quite expensive. So our next couple are Alan and Carol, and they are retirees. They are long-term cruising. When I did this for them, they were 65 and 69, and they come back to the US to see family, but they have Medicare, so they're not worried about a plan that's gonna cover that. And in addition, because they have Medicare, should somebody get cancer or somebody develop some other condition or disease that becomes an ongoing problem, they can always return home for care. And I know that that's not ideal, but from the cost perspective, it really makes a lot of sense. So my recommendation is, because they can come home, my recommendation is short-term, a travel medical policy and or just evacuation insurance. Some people like to do both. Some people like to just do one. What people need to understand about the travel medical is that you can buy them year after year after year, but anything that happens to you in 1 year becomes a pre-existing condition in the next year. And so they give you less protection in the long term. So if you got cancer, they would say, oh, look, you have cancer. Well, that's great. And when you go to renew, they would say, well, that's a pre-existing condition. And so even though they would perhaps cover you for part of it the first year, or some treatment, they would then say, okay, well, now it's time for you to go home because these plans are supposed to be used with your home insurance. And so where people find difficulty with them is when they try and substitute them for regular insurance. And the cost looks something like this. If they were seasonal cruisers, now these guys were long-term cruising, they didn't end up using GeoBlue, but if they were seasonal cruisers returning to the US after 6 months, I would recommend GeoBlue. And you can see it's a little bit more expensive than some of the alternatives, but if you have Medicare, it gives you full coverage for pre-existing conditions. And you can buy it for up to 182 days of coverage. you do need to buy it before you depart. So if you're already down in the islands, you got to fly home to buy this. Next best, I think for them and for their ages, and what they ended up purchasing from me was IMG Globehopper Senior. And as long as you have either a Medicare Advantage or Medicare A and B with a gap with the gap insurance supplement, then this is a good way to go. It's definitely the most cost effective. It includes telemedicine. IMG is known, they've been around a long time and they are well known in other countries. And then the budget conscious would be the Patriot Light plan. You can see it's a little bit cheaper. I don't think it would be worth it for them. I didn't think it would be worth it for them, and for most seniors, because it has $100,000 medical max at their age, and then that drops to 50,000 when they get into their 70s. But it is cheaper. It does give you telemedicine, and all three of these include evacuation to the nearest best facility for care. So these guys are still out there, and Dave and Cindy, I made them into Canadians for the purpose of the talk today. They're actually from Oregon, but I needed a Canadian example on here because I know some of you might be from Canada, and you may be wondering, well, can I get these plans too? And the answer is most of them. Most of these are available to Canadians. I actually have some that are only available if you're not from the US. And their goal is to keep cruising as long as they can. They're a little bit younger, pre-Medicare, obviously. And they decided that a scaled back catastrophic plan with just inpatient was good. They know that where they're going, outpatient care is cheap. They were starting on the West Coast and heading down to Mexico and then Central America. And they knew there's excellent doctors in Mexico. They were happy to get their care there, and then they're heading to the South Pacific after that. So where they were going, they were fine using local medical care and for any outpatient things, and they just wanted something in case of a catastrophe. So for them, top shelf plan would be Cigna. Again, the modularness. They tag you as globally mobile, so they know that you're moving around. They do have rigorous underwriting. Next best is a company that I like out of the UK called Expatriate. Americans can take them, but they don't. If you're an American, they want you to have proof that you're living somewhere else. And so that's difficult on a sailboat. If you're from a different country, they just want your sailboat registered somewhere else. So if you have a sailboat registered not in the US, this would be a great choice. And I do use this as a sort of a backup. You can see the pricing is similar to Cigna for kind of believe it or not, you get what you pay for, as they say. So when you put them side by side for the benefits, the prices come out pretty similar. And the one thing I like about them is that they're what's called the look back period for pre-existing conditions is only 2 years. So let's say you had breast cancer 5 years ago. Cigna may deny you completely. They'll say absolutely not. And Expatriate will say, well, are you symptom free? Are you taking any drugs? Are you doctor visit free? And if all three of those things are true, then they will insure you, and they will insure you if you get cancer again, because you have now been, symptom and medication free for the last 2 years. So I do use them occasionally for us gringos when it's appropriate to do that. And then finally, the IMG Global, same issues as before. In this case, Dave and Cindy, I believe, went with expatriate. Oh no, I take it back. They went with Cigna. They went with Cigna with this plan right here, the inpatient ER cancer. And then they took a pretty high deductible. Cigna has deductibles up to $10,000. And so they went with a high deductible plan. These guys are also out there cruising. You might have met them, Jim Bob, Marley, and Axel. They're long-term cruising. They started in Trinidad, and then they made their way north, and then they were spending this summer working up the eastern seaboard. They have an ACA plan, and it's a nice subsidized one. It's cheap. It was about $325 a month. I'm sure we all wish we were paying that much for our health insurance. And so for them, it didn't make sense to get a long-term plan. It made much more sense to get a short-term plan as well. And so that I couldn't touch that, their price, even if they wanted foreign and US coverage, I couldn't touch that ACA plan with a 10-foot pole in terms of the cost. And so for anybody who has an ACA plan and wants to know, should I ditch it and do a long-term plan, or should I keep it and do short-term insurance? We can do that cost analysis and see what makes sense for you. If you're paying Cobra, I guarantee you it makes sense to do a long-term plan, because I know Cobra can be just so expensive. So for them, I recommended Globehopper, Patriot, and then Atlas, the most sort of budget conscious plan out there. Globehopper has the best policy wording of the three, and it's IMG, but it's IMG Europe as opposed to IMG USA, and IMG Europe is much more consumer focused, and so it's easier if you have a bad claim, if you have claim issues, it's easier to challenge those with the IMG Europe. It is a little bit more expensive, as you can see, but I think it's worth it to have that, that policy wording that is more consumer friendly. Atlas does not include telemedicine. The other two do. Atlas is pretty scaled back. The other two, I know I think both of the IMG plans offer both lost like cell phone coverage and some liability coverage as well. So our next example is my mother. When my mom was 75 a few years ago, she's now 82. We wanted to fly home. No, we were down in Loretto for Christmas, and she had some extreme intestinal pain. And she ended up having emergency surgery in Loretto, Baja California, in a super sketch hospital. Scared the heck out of us. And I learned a lot about the process of evacuation, having to actually try and coordinate evacuation and coordinate everything. And it was scary as hell. What ended up happening is that they can't evacuate you if you're not stable. And I was truly, as the son and the insurance guy, I'm like, okay, well, the flying unicorns are going to be here in no time to take you home. And that's not the case. The first thing they do is they get on the phone with the doctor and they say, well, is she stable? And he said, no. And they said, how long does she have to live? And he said, a couple of hours. And so then they said, well, I'm not sure we could get a plane there that fast. It takes like 5 to 7 hours to coordinate an evacuation. And then they said, do you have what you need to do the surgery? And he said, yes. And at that point, I'm freaking out. I'm like, no, I just want her somewhere else. And so luckily the surgeon was absolutely amazing. I'm a fluent Spanish speaker, but my mom is not, and his English was impeccable. He'd done his residency in Houston. Um, and he was an absolutely phenomenal surgeon. He knew exactly what was wrong. Um, and he did the operation and she was fine. But like I said, she wasn't stable, so she couldn't go home. If you were to get uh, what's called a standalone evacuation insurance, what they do that's different from every evacuation I've mentioned up to, or every policy provision I've mentioned up to now, is they fly you to the hospital that you want. And with MedJet, for example, even if it does not have to be medically necessary, and with TME. So she could have had her operation, she could have been recovering and now stable, and she could have said, I want to evacuate to my hospital at home because it's Christmas Day and I want to be with the rest of my family and it's a nicer hospital and I want to go. And they would have flown her there. Um, but you do have to be for the first two, MedJet and TME, you have to be admitted to a hospital before you can activate the plan. Um, Global Rescue is a little bit different. Just like all the other plans, they evacuate you to the nearest best facility. They don't promise to get you home. Their specialization is extraction and triage. And so a lot of cruisers like them because if you have a medical emergency on some island, they're going to figure out how to get you where you need to go to a hospital. They're going to triage you and they're going to get you stabilized, and then they're going to get you to the nearest best facility. If that facility can't do what you need, then they will fly you home. So it's based on medical necessity, not just whether you want to go or not. They also have excellent telemed triage, and then for an extra amount of money, they have security extraction. Should things go south in Venezuela and you happen to be, down there, they could send in their team and get you out. A lot of they're pretty popular with cruisers. The name I've heard quite a few times from people. Evacuations are really expensive, and there's been some very expensive evacuations from the Bahamas and the Caribbean this year. This chart is actually already old. It's already 3 years old. But you can see, you know, from Mexico, $28,000 to get somebody home. That was based on 30 air ambulance trips. Sometimes they put you on a regular flight, but with a nurse escort. And you can see even that is expensive. So this is going to put a dent in the cruising kitty if you need to be evacuated somewhere else. And so having a plan that can do that is definitely valuable. And I would say make sure you have something that will at least get you to the nearest best facility. Mind you, none of these pay the bills once you get there. These are just standalone evac. They pay for the evacuation. Another situation that comes up frequently is visiting crew. You have family or friends and they want to come down and they want to spend a couple weeks on your boat. And whether you decide to carry insurance or not is a decision, for you. I highly recommend that if you have crew, paid crew, free crew, family crew, friend crew coming down to your boat, that you ask them to buy international health insurance. It's cheap. It's short term, right? And I should have fixed this today and I didn't. So this is for a month. So if you had crew coming for a month, 58-year-old crew, this is what it would cost. And considering the cost of airfare, the cost of all the food and alcohol you're buying to entertain your crew, it's a pretty minimal expense to ask of them. And it's really a CYA thing. If somebody gets hurt on your boat and then they decide that it was your fault, and then all of a sudden that friendship ends because they want to sue you, or if a family member suddenly needs an evacuation, and it's so expensive, it really is. It's a cheap way to really protect yourself. And this also goes for um, if you take on paid crew. I had a gunboat 90 last year, with a crew from New Zealand, and they had paid crew on their boat. They did not actually have insurance, but they absolutely got insurance for their captain and their babysitter. Um, I think they had 4 kids. So that's my recommendation there. To purchase a plan, if you go through the company, it costs exactly the same as if you go through me. But the advantage of going through me is you get me. Um, if you call me on a Sunday from Ascension Island in the middle of Atlantic because you need some form or some proof of insurance, I will help you get it. And yes, that happened. If you call the company on a Sunday, you get nobody. So I'm here as your agent to help you in any way I can. You also get my unbiased comparison, as you just heard, of the different companies and what works best. I've been doing this a while, and so I have my opinions. Here's my information. There's a get a quote button. And when you click that, it'll ask you some questions. A lot of people ask me for help, but they don't tell me how old they are. All of these plans are based on how old you are. So please give me your ages. The state you're from is helpful, or the country. And then your general travel plans. Are you spending 3 months in the US and then going abroad, or are you looking for something as soon as you cross over to the Bahamas? There's a phone number and a WhatsApp number and a toll-free number, but email is always the easiest and the best. And I do have one last little tidbit to share with you. And I have a few things to say about Dan Boater coverage. I like Dan. I will carry Dan. I'm a diver. I'm a scuba diver and a free diver, and I will 100% use Dan when I go because they have the best decompression chamber coverage and dive related issue insurance out there, and it's super cheap. But their health insurance, if you buy their single trip health insurance, they're contracting through a company called CSA, and it's not one that I've heard of. It's not very well known, and it's expensive. And so down here at the very bottom, I've got a cost comparison of 1 year of their coverage. And I think I just used myself as an example, versus 1 year of IMG versus 1 year of Atlas. And you can see that the Dan was more expensive. And Dan, everybody says Dan is what I use for my evacuation insurance because they fly me home. And that's actually not true. Dan flies you to the nearest best facility for treatment, just like every other plan. And they will repatriate you home if your trip is over or whatever. But then the newest thing, and you can read the Dan president's statement on the Noonsite website. He has a long letter that he wrote that basically said, if you're living on your boat, we will repatriate you back to your boat. We're not flying you back to your home if your home is your boat. And so I think that Dan feels like their relatively cheap insurance is being abused, and and they're getting frustrated with that. So I highly recommend, if you want evacuation coverage, you buy a standalone plan. And that concludes my talk for this evening. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Arno, this is Joan. I don't
Yeah.
have any questions, but I do have a comment about global rescue. I
Yes.
believe Global Rescue is involved with several of the Iridium programs. Isn't that the same Global Rescue that you can get with, say, your Spot, or, well, not Spot, Spot gets something different, but Iridium programs offer you an emergency rescue, return you home plan, and I think it's Global Rescue. Um, and
I,
that takes you to the nearest facility, which may not be in the US. It may be the nearest facility that's
yeah, Global
okay.
Rescue. Global Rescue takes you to the nearest best facility. They do have a clause in there um, that they do have a clause in there that if that facility can't give you what you need, let's say you're in Mexico. I'm sorry, I don't know the Caribbean well enough yet, but let's say you're in Mexico and they evacuate you to a hospital and you need a stent and they can't do it there. Then your next evacuation is going to be home. They're not going to keep jumping from hospital to hospital. So they say that if they get you somewhere and they can't do what you need, they will fly you to any hospital of your choice.
Well, that's good to know. It's the devil's in the details in all of this, and it sounds like you're a real expert, Arno. I know that we've talked frequently at the boat show. I think you will be a very interesting person to talk to at the boat show. We will be sending you customers, at least for advice and maybe for insurance. Um, do we have any questions, or
There's a couple
anything
I
to
can
add?
answer. I see a couple I can answer. So, Deborah, SkyMed. SkyMed is just like MedJet and TME. I actually looked into representing them once upon a time, and they only allow their brokers to represent them. And I'm the kind of guy that wants to give people choices, and so I chose not to go with them. But I think they're a fine. I don't have anything bad to say about them. I think they're probably a great company. I don't know a whole lot. Um, nice. FY. So if you're AARP, you get up to 20% off on MedJet, although that might mean you have to buy it through AARP. Um, but that's okay. I support that. Um, let's see. And I think that's it. If you guys have other questions, I'm happy to answer questions, happy to answer emails. I know it's a pretty dry subject.
We have Mark Johnson ask, I think you may have answered it, but we have international health insurance, but might need evacuation due to injury or whatever in the US or overseas.
Oh, what should we
What
aim
should
for?
we aim
Yeah.
for?
Well, let's hear about, you can send me an email with what plan you have, and then I would say probably MedJet or TME if you wanted something additional, or if you want that extraction thing, then I would go for Global Rescue. Deborah, yes, you can work with me if you're natives of Washington. I know Washington is super strict on which plans it can offer, but I do have plans that are offered in Washington. There are fewer of them, but they are definitely there. Cigna is fine in Washington, and Expatriate, because those are both offshored in the UK.
Now, I happen to know that Deborah just might be on the way to Mexico and then maybe to the Pacific. So I'm sure that there's other, your insurances will be very interesting to some of the attendees.
And Deborah, then I want a boat tour when you get to San Diego. Um,
I think they're almost there,
oh,
Arno.
okay, good.
Are you in San Diego? Where are you at?
I am in San Diego, yes.
Well, Deborah, when you get to San Diego, guess who you
Give,
call?
give me a call. We'll go share a rum drink.
Oh, you're going to have some real friends, Arno. I don't think they can hear. I don't think they can. Deborah, let me.
Oh, I
Um,
can't hear you, Deborah, but I can respond. Uh,
Let me put Deborah live. Deborah, I'm going to set you up to talk. There, Deborah, you should be able to talk. Let me
Hello,
view.
Deborah.
Honey, I feel so privileged.
Uh,
Hi,
where
Deborah.
where are
How
you?
was your finger, Deborah?
I had the stitches out yesterday, and we're from Washington, and so my policy in Washington didn't cover anything in California.
No, it does not. Most of the ACA plans are super restrictive. They only allow for coverage in the state you're at. That's one of the advantage of the long-term plans that are international is they if you have US coverage, they cover you in all 50 states.
Yeah, so I think I have Doug Lombard here with me, my partner. Hello,
Hi, Chris. How you, Deborah? Or how you,
Arno.
Arno?
Arno and
And
Joan.
John?
Yeah, anyway, so we are very interested because we will need insurance that actually will cover us kind of irrespective. We had an emergency with my finger and it's fine. I have to go back to the doctor in LA in early December to have a pin. He put a pin in my finger, a metal pin, and it has to come out in December. And so I don't know if any of that will be covered or if we'll be able to get insurance. I'm not sure, but that, and then we're not really planning to be back in the US for kind of a year, except to, visit.
Week
And
or
we
two here or there.
neither of us qualify for Medicaid yet. We're not old enough. Almost, but not quite. So we'll call
Well,
you or email
yeah,
you. We're
send me an email.
definitely wanting some
Are you
insurance.
guys up in LA right now?
We are.
The boat's in
Okay.
LA. We're flying home and then coming back to the boat in a couple weeks.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, you can't really go south till November. Um, but yeah, send me an email and we will find a plan that will work for you all over the place.
Cool. We'll be in San Diego by October 13th is kind of our latest. Could be earlier.
Got some
Okay.
more customers for you too, Arno. I'm the founder of the Coho Ho Ho Sailing Rally. We've got
Oh,
19
how fun.
boats this year, so people are usually coming down the coast so that they can go to Mexico and beyond. So
Cool.
we can
I've sponsored the
accommodate.
Baja Haha a couple times.
Yeah, we're always looking for good speakers and sponsors and to take care of you with what you do.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Look forward to meeting you in person.
Likewise.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, this will be fun. This will be fun. Um, they have a very nice WhatsApp group. I'll tell you about them afterwards, Arno.
Okay.
Um, Robert Morrison says, "See you in Annapolis." And John Davidson, I think John might have asked.
I just answered. I said, John, Dan is cheap. It is best for
Okay.
dive injuries. I would get it. It's too cheap not to get. It's like $60 a year or $100 a year or something. Not their travel insurance, just their dive insurance. Just get their basic dive plan for dive emergencies.
Well, for example, if you're on your dink and hurt yourself when you're on the dink and fall in the water, I would consider that's a water accident.
True. Uh,
So
great. Well, it's been fun to talk to everybody and look forward to meeting some of you at the show.
now we have Deborah, well, not Deborah, but let me see if I can zoom this up. I'm having a little bit of internet trouble right here. I always do. Jennifer Beard asked, we have Mexican residency and can buy into their national health plan. What would you recommend to supplement that? They also have an ACA plan in the US.
Um, so with Mexican residency, that's actually tough. The only plans you can get are long-term plans, with the exception of GeoBlue, which is only good for 6 months of the GeoBlue short-term plan. So all of the all of the short-term plans from Atlas and IMG and Seven Corners and all those companies once you establish residency somewhere else, they will not allow you to use their short-term plan. But there are long-term plans we could look at. Shoot me an email with your ages, and I will get back to you with that. Probably living, if you have Mexican residency, probably expatriate would be one of the ones that I would recommend. Because you can now if you're down there, you're gonna have some receipts and things that'll show that you're actually living there. Or that ACA plan, we should look at how much that costs you. And then if it's not heavily subsidized, you do spend time in the US, maybe we should look at something that covers you here and there, which would be a long-term plan.
Well, Arno, I don't see any more. This was very informative and helpful. Thank you so much. And that was a very nice comment. And Mark Johnson's going to be writing to you and stopping by at Annapolis. So I think this has been an informative event. Everyone can see his email is very complicated. It's his first name, Arno, at healthisinternational.com. And you can see the phone numbers, WhatsApp. And Deborah, you might want to invite him to your WhatsApp group for your event, because it sounds like he's a health expert. If someone is in trouble, I bet he knows how to help them. If Arno wants to. Anyway, thank you very much, Arno. This recording will be sent to everyone afterwards, and we hope this will be of help. And I appreciate the time that you've taken to speak to the cruisers and sharing your expertise with them. And SSCA is very proud to have you for a sponsor.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Appreciate being here. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Arno.
Thanks, Arno. Thanks, Joan.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that was very